The good ones I do, but then I throw them out too.
Really?
Over time. Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Even paintings you think are good?
Well, yeah. Yeah, I do.
Wow.
Yeah, I try not to get too attached to my stuff.
That's
Wow.
impressive.
Well, it might be a problem.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Have you heard of selling that?
He's like, what is that? I've heard that before.
You mean there's money to be made?
The thing I said about you being the smartest person.
I take that back.
Yeah. Hey guys, this is Waiting Dry. I'm Joshua Lawyer.
I'm Sergio Lopez.
And today we have Jeremy Duncan. I almost said Duncan Jeremy. Welcome to our show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You are Sergio's buddy. So today is the first day I've ever met you.
Yeah.
And I hear you had a decent trek to make it this way, so...
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. 2.5 hours.
We might have to pull the mic slightly closer,
okay.
or maybe lower.
Lower.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I can see you guys too.
Yeah. So wait, where are you from?
I live in a small town called Ione.
Ione.
Yeah, California. Up in the foothills of the Sierra Nevadas.
What does Ione mean?
I don't know. I don't know if it's a name or if it's yeah, I have no idea actually.
Nice. Is it pretty scenic?
It is. Yeah, that's kind of what got me out there. Was the scenery.
Nice.
Yeah.
Are you anywhere near a river?
There's a creek in my backyard, Sutter Creek.
Okay.
Nice. That's cool.
So it's nice.
Awesome.
But it's seasonal. It's all dried up now. But Sutter Creek is where they discovered gold, just not in Ione.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Not yet.
I mean, I did get a gold pan. I just haven't panned down there yet.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. So is it pretty... So for people that don't know your work, you are a landscape painter?
Yeah, mostly. That's what I'm into lately.
Yeah.
It's been a few years that I've been stuck on landscapes, and I just can't really get past those. I do other things as well,
still
but
lives.
I do still life,
Yeah, I
even
saw that.
portraiture a little
you
bit.
do portrait? Maybe I didn't scroll far
But
down enough.
No, I mean I don't really have anything to post on my Instagram. It's
that'd
just
be
been so
interesting to
long. I've
see.
just been fixated on doing landscapes. And
Nice.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen any portraits of yours either.
Yeah.
When you paint them, would they be as loose as your
You know, it's hard to say
landscapes?
because it's like I said, it's been so long. I can't even tell you the last portrait I painted. But that's kind of how it goes. I just follow where I feel like going, and I've just been stuck on this for such a long time.
For sure.
But I like to think so. I think it's just a way I enjoy seeing and putting it down is kind of in a fragmented, broken up way. So I'd like to transfer that into portraiture as well.
Nice. So how long have you been outdoors and doodling?
Yeah, well, I mean, hasn't been consecutive, but I remember my grandma took me outside to sketch when I was a little boy, and that was my first sort of encounter with it.
Wow.
But obviously there was some time in between that and discovering plein air painting, which I did in college.
Okay.
I had a painting teacher. It was actually kind of funny because I was taking classes over the summer, and I was enrolled in his class, and I showed up for the first day, and I was the only one there.
Oh, really?
And I was like, are we doing this? And he's like, yeah, we'll run the class. I'm like, okay, sounds good. He's like, let's go paint. So we loaded up in his truck and we went around town and
Holy
we went
shit.
to some spots and painted. It was
That's
pretty cool.
great.
Yeah. So that's where I first kind of got a taste of it and saw him. And I just liked the vibe of being outside and kind of, isolated and just focusing on nature. And I found that I was concentrating on what I was doing and I was able to tune basically the world out, and I liked being in that place.
That's great.
And so I've kind of been addicted to that ever since.
Awesome. So did you go to art school or was...
Yeah, I did. My degree is in painting and drawing.
Nice. Where was this?
This was originally at Rexburg, Idaho, at Rick's College.
Okay.
It was a 2-year college at the time, and then it became a 4-year university.
Are you from Idaho?
No, I'm from California originally.
Huh.
But I went up there. My brother went to school up there, and I went up to check it out to see if they had anything I liked. And they had a really good art program up there. It was really foundational and traditional, representational art, which I was into. So it's like, yeah, try it out. So ended up working out. So I got a degree from there and started to learn how to paint. Originally, I was into illustration at the time because I thought that was the best, most feasible way of making a career as an artist. And,
Right.
I was really into drawing at the time. I didn't even know about painting at that time. I was, like most high school kids, they just wanted to draw.
Right, for sure.
In fact, I thought every time I added color, it'd get wrecked, so.
That's crazy because your work now is just, it seems so color driven.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
That's interesting.
And then so I started up there in illustration and then fell in love with painting. So decided to jump ship and pursue that.
Seems like a common story. A lot of people seem to go in the illustrator route and then come out in love with painting.
Yeah, even professionally too, I think there's a lot of illustrators or people in the fine art world that started off as illustrators.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So
a lot of plein air painters we know started that way.
Yeah, I know. Tim Horn is one of them.
Tim Horn, Eric Bowman.
Oh, is that right?
As well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, a bunch of other people.
Yeah, I know Morgan Weisling, his work.
Yeah.
He does figurative stuff, but I think he started originally as a illustrator.
I think I've looked up some of his old book covers or something like that before. And I think it's actually fairly similar, if I remember right, to the sort of thing he paints now. It was like romance covers.
Oh, is that right?
Something like that,
okay.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of have that soft, wispy.
Yeah.
Guy with his shirt off. He's always wearing like a button up that's torn.
Yeah,
Fabio.
Exactly.
Nice.
It's like, why does all your stuff look like Fabio?
It'd be kind of cool to like make a show based off of romance novel covers.
Ironically? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be.
Ironically serious about it.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you talking about? Irony.
Yeah.
This is my life's work.
That'd be even better if you pretended it wasn't ironic.
Yeah.
That's like deep levels of irony right there. For sure.
Yeah, you just like go into it talking about like, so the white shirt being torn represents like the history of oppression.
Yeah, exactly.
Hell yeah.
The White Russians.
Is when the snow hit the ground and demolished my people.
Yeah,
exactly.
Nice. When you paint, I mean, we touched on it a little bit, but you're, at least for me, when I first saw your stuff, I was blown away by the colors you use.
Oh, thank
you. I'm assuming you're exaggerating them, but I don't know.
I am, yeah. And that's probably a response to me underdoing my color. And so to compensate for that, I tend to push it a little further.
Right.
Because it got muted and so neutral for so long, and this, I think, is a reaction against that. And so for me, painting it's looking for a feeling, kind of grasping and trying to find something.
That's cool.
Sometimes I usually start a little brighter than I should, and I pull back a little bit from that. Because I found for me personally, it's easier to do that than to start on the neutral side and try to put intensity and brightness in that way.
That makes sense.
That's interesting.
Maybe that's like a personality thing, psychological. I don't know. But
I'm sure. I mean, I think with most artists, if you like start breaking down work that they do, you could just pick apart things.
That's true.
Up,
yeah.
Well,
like handwriting experts, they can do that with handwriting, I think, to some degree.
For sure.
Maybe you can do that with works of art. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm sure.
That's a good point.
Yeah, there's definitely some.
It's like, looking at your work, I can tell you were not breastfed.
Yeah.
You have some unresolved childhood issues.
And then you get deep into it. You're like, I could tell you were breastfed, but only for the first month.
Judging by that brushstroke right there, you have some real daddy issues.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I think even like one of the main things you could probably spot out is like patience with people.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and I mean, how like confident they are and things like that. At least with a paintbrush, maybe not in real life.
True.
But with their skill, you can see confidence or whatever. You know, there's all these like character traits you can like pick apart about a person.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think too, you know, the artist that I really admire, like I was looking at your line decor in your bathroom in there just a minute ago, and like he, you know, it has
I force you to look at it.
It's like just transfixed. He has a, you know, a really unique style, and there's restraint there that you can see, but there's also like a sense of looseness to it. And
Yeah.
that balance there, I think, is really mature, and it just shows, you know, a lot of that, I think, discipline as an artist that I really admire.
Definitely. Yeah, he's definitely got some things where he just executes I don't know, like textures and technique, and it's like the simplest thing, and you're like, oh yeah, you could totally do that way. That's such a good way to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, even watching artists paint, you know, because I love watching people paint or draw or any of that stuff. It's just wildly relaxing, and that's kind of a contradiction. Wildly relaxing.
Oxymoron.
Like you see these people, and they're just building up their painting and building up to it, and they're just working up to their accents or their highlights or whatever, and you just want so bad for them to. Like I remember watching Greg Manchess paint. He came and did a you know, Greg Manchess, the illustrator. You know him?
I know. Yeah.
I'm horrible at names. Just look at Sergio every time.
That's all right. He came and did a portrait demo when I was up at school, and I was just watching him, and he, you know, he's really good with that control, but also that looseness thing. And I was watching him do a life portrait, and he was just slowly building up to the lights. And I was like, come on, put in that highlight.
Yeah.
And he was just slowly working up to it. And then when he did it, just everything just came together like crazy. Yeah. But, you know, being young and you just want to see like the flash and the...
For sure, yeah.
You're just begging for it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's like the comparison is like... you know, like drumstick ice creams where they have the chocolate at the bottom.
Exactly.
Right. It's like you work towards that. And some people, they like to just go straight to the bottom. And,
that's one way to do it.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I haven't painted for a while, for a couple months, and I just got back into painting. And I kind of like did that. I cheated and gave myself an early highlight, and then I rubbed it off and was like, just like, oh, I felt good.
Yeah.
But yeah. I don't know. It's the best. It's true. It's the best part of, at least for me, for the for like painting people portraits or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, for highlights for landscapes, is that pretty similar?
Well, yeah. I mean, to some extent, there usually is something in there that you want to pop or to sing.
Yeah.
Right.
But I found I try to keep that in mind, that I do rush into that, and I find that when I am a little bit more restrained and controlled and working to that rather than rushing to it, usually the paintings work out a little bit better for me personally. And
that
being a little
sense.
More thoughtful in getting there rather than being impulsive. And although sometimes that happens too, you know, when you're loose and impulsive, every once in a while you strike gold. But for me, it's works better when I'm deliberate.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's kind of the craftsmanship of being a painter.
Yeah.
You know, anyone can make a 2x4 bench, but it takes skill to make a
Sam Malouf rocker.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
For sure. R.I.P.
R.I.P. Sam.
But yeah, that's cool. One of the cool things with you is like with like the colors you use in your paintings is the sun seems like it's like such a dominant figure in your paintings.
Yeah.
You know, like whenever they're there, they're like, we're here. Yeah. There was one painting I saw of yours where you almost like surrounded it with a darker tone, and then you came in. I can't remember what painting it was. I like went through your whole thingy the other day, so maybe it was something like this, where you like intentionally just do like this circle of like orange.
Yeah, they're darker.
And there's like no gradients around.
Yeah, because I mean the value of that sun isn't much lighter than the value of the sky around it.
Right.
So to bring out that lightness,
you like,
I had to knock down that color a little bit.
Yeah, you put like a medium tone around it.
Yeah.
And it's like you're like highlighting the sun. You're like, there's the sun.
Bullseye.
Yeah. It's a cool, is there like are you just, that's just something you like stylistically you like doing, or?
It's just something that comes out, you know. I don't deliberately do it.
Mm-hmm.
I try to, like I said, I think for me, painting is a lot about exploration and finding what works, what I can get away with, and what visually makes sense. And it's just kind of a trial and error thing, which is not the smartest way to go about things, but I like
think
that.
That's the best way.
I like that, you know, discovery, that
For sure.
aspect of it, and finding it in that way.
Yeah, I think so. I think like pursuing art in that fashion allows you to. We've talked about it before, but it just like the failing and being okay with that.
Yes.
But like maybe finding something special through that.
Yeah.
Is way more important to me than just kind of sticking to.
Yeah.
You know what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, and for a while, you know, I thought each painting had to be a good one, and they had to be keepers, and I had to be proud of them, and you know that. And I realized that it should just be a little experiment, you know, and you're building your skill set over time.
For sure.
And look at it as a life's pursuit rather than an individual one-off, you know, masterpiece.
Definitely.
And once you get past that and you think about a body of work that spans a lifetime and is about development and exploration, then those failures, not only do they not matter as much, but they actually are more helpful, and you can look at it constructively and find the good in it rather than just disregarding it and say, no, it's worthless because it doesn't, you know, doesn't give me my credibility as an artist.
Yeah, and that's tough nowadays with like everyone on, like today I had someone ask me like, oh, how do you get more followers on Instagram? And I'm like, I don't know, you just like grind it out. But
yeah,
but like even then it's like, but just like just focus on your artwork, man. Like just share your artwork if you want to. Yeah. And do that. And I mean, don't be dumb about it, I guess. Like you can pursue the social media aspect of art intelligently, but
for sure,
at the end of the day, you should be pursuing like your artwork and focusing on that and understanding that that is what you want to spend most time, like, you know, developing, rather than like some cheat code to have 1 million followers on Instagram or something.
Yeah, and if you have that before you know what it is that you want and what you're after, then you're kind of trapped.
For sure.
By the consensus of your fans and the likes of other people.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I was posting stuff before, and I knew anyone would like it. I just posted it because I thought that's what, you know, as an artist, I wanted to put it out there and, you know, see what people thought.
Definitely.
For good and for bad, I guess. And I guess I got lucky that you know, a few people liked it. So
yeah, I think I'm always pleasantly surprised when I find an artist that I don't think fits like the correct mold of like the modern day what's hip and cool right now, but they're doing something different.
Sure.
But they have a big following, and I'm like, okay, like there are people that get this, that kind of, you know, aren't stuck on like what's the coolest thing to do right now. But
they're not chasing fame and fashion.
And people, they have a group of people that are like, yeah, this is what I like.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, even your stuff, you do landscape stuff, which I don't even like. I know Sergio has issues with that. And people, you know,
issues
like, you know, people not showing him so much love for that aspect of his art, because I think,
okay,
you know,
you're saying now,
I mean? like compared to your other works, a lot of times your landscapes get backseated to that, as far as like popularity or whatever, or people liking it. Yeah. So, you know, that is a tricky, it seems to be a tricky place for landscapers to like maneuver through, is the social media thing.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, they don't seem to get as much love as figurative stuff or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's right.
But it's cool. I mean, you seem to have a great following.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely appreciate it, you know, and I love hearing that it resonates with people and they get a kick out of it, because sometimes I honestly don't know. You know, I do something that I think is okay, and as artists, you know, it's a proven fact that we're our harshest critics, you know.
For sure.
And I just put it out there anyway and see what happens, and it ends up that people really enjoy it, and I love when that happens. And
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a good feeling.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think it's tricky because a lot of times if I really like something,
Mm-hmm.
it might play a little mind game with me if it doesn't get as much love
Right.
as something that I'm like, that was whatever. And then all of a sudden that's loved and I'm like, I don't get this. Like, I don't
Yeah.
understand.
That's it. It's fickle, that's for sure.
And then it's the whole like dilemma of, do I try to figure that out, or do I just pursue what I like doing?
Yeah.
And, throw caution to the wind and say, like, I don't care if you don't like it or not, and hope it pays off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think either way is fine. It just depends on what you're into. You know? I think you have to have a healthy amount of both, maybe, if you want to be, because you need a certain amount of following if you want to be successful in that world.
Right.
But then you also want to be true to yourself and your interests, and so you have to walk that line.
Yeah. And I also think it goes back to like what we were saying earlier about your you as like a person and your character and what your art says about you.
Yeah.
You might be a little bit more reckless and you might not give a fuck about what people think.
Right.
And then versus like pursuing, you might also go and look for the approval of others, and
True.
then you might pursue an art form that, maybe it might make you happy because you're getting the approval of others or whatever, and you might find value through that.
And maybe that's what you need,
Yeah,
and maybe
for
you're
sure.
the type of person that doesn't need that validation, and
Yeah.
you do have that, rebellious attitude.
Yeah.
So maybe it seeps into everything, and I don't know. That's a tricky thing to try to extrapolate.
Yeah, I think that's just a personal thing. Each person has to kind of like develop through their own, you have to be like, kind of look at yourself and figure that out yourself. You can't,
Right.
we're not going to give anyone answers today about that. And that's not our job.
Right.
We're here to shoot shits.
Although I would love for somebody to analyze my work and tell me more about myself. I need that insight.
Oh,
in my
that's
life.
coming. We've got a segment.
Oh, great.
Nice. So when you do these landscapes, you were telling me earlier that you're pretty quick with with the brush.
They're all small. All my Instagram stuff is really small.
Oh, really? Is that common? You guys are like going places, so I'm assuming you'd have to have it like travel size.
Yeah, I do it on location, so I do small and light and quick.
Do you do the same, Sergio?
Depending on what the purpose is, but yeah, for the most part, if I'm just doing it for myself, I stick with like 8x10 and under for the most part.
Nice, that's cool.
But yeah, even with gouache, I tend to go even smaller than that. So
Right.
Yeah, I've never done anything much larger than I think an 8x10 is maybe the biggest I've done in gouache.
Wow. You paint a lot in gouache, right?
I have lately. Yeah, with Sergio and I were just talking about that earlier.
I've still haven't dabbled, but it seems like a really cool medium.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So did you grow up in the Sierras?
No, I grew up
Area?
in Central Valley in Visalia by Fresno.
Okay.
all right.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, and then we moved up to the Sacramento area when I was 11, I think.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
And then I went to high school there, and yeah,
Nice. How was that?
it was all right.
Yeah.
Galt.
Oh, yeah,
in there.
tiny little town, right?
It's
Yeah.
like halfway between Sacramento and Stockton.
Mm.
So
River folk.
that's true.
Was there many artist kids?
Not really. We didn't really have a thriving art community per se, but there's always the hotshot artists at each high school, which I was not one, by the way.
Really?
Yeah,
Nice.
I wanted to be. I thought it was pretty cool. No, I just wasn't there yet.
For sure. Yeah. It's fine. It's no race.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Someday I'll be the cool art kid.
Yeah. Just got to Billy Madison it up.
Exactly.
Go back to high school and
Yeah.
yeah, that's cool. So you guys met.
Yeah, we
At
met at a
think it was
plein air
winter.
event.
It was Winters, right?
Winters, yeah.
Mhm.
So out near Davis. Yeah.
Yeah, they got a brewery I love out there.
Oh, yeah,
did-
Berryessa.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah,
good one.
Berryessa. That's right.
That's my favorite. Whatever. Let's stop talking about that.
But yeah, what you were saying earlier about your work being a bit more muted and stuff back then, like your work has always had this sort of simple shapes to it, and that's kind of what drew me to your work, because I've always kind of been a fan of yours. But yeah, so
I'll give you an autograph after this.
But yeah, I saw your work, and I was already standing out from the other work there in the things, and so yeah, we met there, and then we just kind of started talking, and just kept in touch.
He started talking.
I just stood there and waited for him to start
awkwardly
talking.
Yeah. Like, hello, I'm Jeremy. And you are?
Yeah, and then Sergio just wrote his name down on a piece of paper and handed it to you.
I did one of those nods.
Yes. Will you be my friend? Yes. No.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nice. That's cool. How long ago was that?
Was it? I think it was 2011 or 2012, something like that.
So.
Yeah.
You were a young whippersnapper.
Yeah.
That's it.
Nice.
And then we did Sonoma Plein Air together. It was probably like a year or two after that, right? Something like that.
Yeah, I think a couple years after.
Mm-hmm.
In those circles, I mean, I'm definitely not part of the plein air community. So in those circles, do they like? Is your stuff pretty like accepted? I mean.
How do you mean?
I don't like because you definitely seem different than like most landscape paintings I've seen.
A little bit. I mean, I don't know.
Maybe a little bit, but
So I've never been invited to the secret meetings. So I don't know.
They're orgies, actually.
Yeah.
Sergio's
I've heard
always
about
at
those.
them.
Yeah, I definitely haven't made it to one of those. They show up in like these red robes. And
Yeah, exactly.
stand in circles.
Yeah, they're like, what medium we use? And they're like, KY?
Linseed oil.
But yeah, I don't know. It just seems like your stuff is different than the stuff I'm used to seeing. But I also don't know. I mean,
that's fair. I mean, I think it has a lot to do with the guys that I admired and I don't know, maybe tried to emulate early on. A lot of the Russian impressionists. I was big on Sergei Bongart. If you heard of him, he was really a big influence in my formative, beginning years of painting. You mentioned Hawthornes earlier.
Oh,
Sergio.
sure. Yeah.
He lived in Rigby, just south of Rexburg, so he was nearby. So drove past his place going to work occasionally, and and so a lot of those guys, I really liked their technique, and I liked that it was bold and colorful and brushstrokey.
Oh, for sure.
And I wanted to kind of incorporate that a little bit more in my work, and so I think that kind of seeped in and hasn't left.
Yeah, I see that now in your work. I didn't make that connection, but yeah, it totally makes sense to me now.
Yeah.
When you, I mean, I feel like for most artists, when they're coming up, you have like a handful of artists you look up to.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you might be guilty of emulating them too hard.
Too much, yeah.
And then a lot of people, they kind of find their footing or whatever, and then they're, you can call it whatever you want to call it, style or whatever.
Right.
That is kind of where a lot of people will settle and then whatever, refigure things out later or something like that. For you, was that the case? Like, did you go about it that way where you would try to emulate their stuff or?
No, it wasn't deliberate. In other words, I wasn't going outside and trying to paint this scene like Sergei would have painted it.
Right.
Or, Scott Christensen would have painted it, or, a lot of those guys, Matt Smith, Kevin McPherson, a lot of these other guys, I wasn't trying to do that. I was more looking at how they solved some of the problems that I might be facing, and then how I could do that as well.
Right.
First of all, I don't think I was smart enough to paint a landscape the way that those guys would have done.
How dare you? I have only known you for today, but you're the smartest person I know.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, way smarter than Sergio.
Well, thank you, sir. And I'm sorry, Sergio.
To read more books.
Book learning. More than anything, I kind of let style and the natural sort of mode of expression take a backseat, and I was just trying to make work that I was interested in. And I just figured with enough volume, eventually that would come out.
Nice.
I wasn't trying to force it. I was just trying to let things happen. And then if, the way that I modeled a tree was working for me, then I would try that next time. And then, eventually over time, it would start to take on a style of its own. So I didn't, I think initially I rushed it and I wanted to have a certain style. And then I realized that I was skipping the fundamentals and the basics of what I needed that was integral in a scene. So I focused more on that and I kind of let that seep in over time.
As far as like composition or something?
Yeah, focusing on composition and the effects of light and rendering what I was looking at. And then the style I figure would take care of it. It's because it's kind of like handwriting,
Right.
When you're learning how to write, you don't really think about your the way that you want your handwriting to look. It just kind of comes out naturally. And I figure that's similar with painting style, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, but then every once in a while you'll see a girl's handwriting. You're like, how dare you?
Yes. How do you do that?
Yeah. I don't know what they have in them, but they have some magic where their handwriting is just 10 times better than any guy's.
Yeah.
Well, and I remember being younger, wanting to have really nice handwriting, and at some point I was like, "This takes too long."
Yeah, exactly that.
Just right.
Yeah, you start taking notes, and whoever's teaching you isn't slowing down.
Yeah,
and then
I got 3 words out of that.
Nice. So, do you throw out paintings?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Oof. I do.
I have
regularly.
I'll like store them for a while before I throw them out.
Yeah, the good ones I do, but then I throw them out too over time. Yeah,
really. Wow.
Even paintings you think are good.
Well, yeah, I do.
Wow.
Yeah, I try not to get too attached to my stuff.
That's impressive.
Well, it might be a problem.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Have you heard of selling that?
He's like, what is that? I've heard that before.
You mean there's money to be made?
Yeah.
The thing I said about you being the smartest person.
I take that back.
Yeah, why don't you sell them?
I do sell occasionally. Not as much as I'd like to, but I don't know. I just... Because that was another thing, too, is at first I was overly attached to my stuff. I found that, it was just too much of an emotional sort of roller coaster between making it and then expecting to sell it, not selling it, holding on to it and having to look at it. And it was just like, I'm just going to get rid of it.
Yeah.
So.
You know what you should do? I'm just winging it right now, but you should get a big pinball machine with the big plastic casing things, but just one that can hold 8x10s. And then you put it in there, and then people have to put in a certain amount of money, and they might get a great piece or your throwaways. Or
nice, yeah.
And either way, you're gonna make $50 or something.
Make something out of it. That's right. Yeah.
Maybe even more.
Yeah.
Don't cross your fingers, but maybe even $55.
Big money.
I love that idea. You know what, Josh? You're the smartest person I know.
Well, I've been told that once. Right now, when you told me that.
Sounds like the smartest person keeps changing.
It's like a battle. We're neck and neck.
Yeah.
Like Jeopardy.
Exactly. Who is Josh? No, seriously, who is he?
Let's look at some of your paintings.
Yeah, this goes back to figuring out yourself before you figure out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this the moon here in this painting?
That is the moon.
Okay. Yeah. I was just double checking because
that is the moon.
Nice. That's awesome. Sorry, people can't see what we're talking about, but I've just been eyeing the shit out of this painting.
Yeah.
And
well, there's more. You can scroll past.
Yeah, I guess that's a good idea. Yeah, you also do bread, and I saw a red cup once, and then I remember reading one of your captions where you're I like to paint simple things or something like that. Mm-hmm. I was like, that's interesting because when you usually think about still lifes, it's always 30 grapes and a cornucopia thing,
a
and
glass of wine with
a glass of wine,
a velvet cloth.
Exactly. Yeah. Some sort of squash with water drops on it.
Right.
I always thought still lifes, they always seemed like they were they were like a video game for the artist back then, you know, like,
Yeah.
like they were like, how do I challenge myself?
Yeah, well, I definitely agree. It can be a challenge.
But when I saw your stuff, like just a single red cup, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, I mean, I don't even think it's like a FU to like the classics. I just think it was like a I don't know. There's also some like nostalgia attached to red cups.
Yeah.
And people who've gotten drunk in their youth. So,
Right.
So like, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, I don't know if you intended that at all.
I mean, I like for it to be, because I like to be interested in what I'm looking at and what I'm painting. I like for it to be relevant to me.
Okay.
And for me, a cluster of grapes with a lobster and a lemon with the red velvet on a silver platter, it's definitely interesting to look at and challenging to paint.
You just don't go to the right parties, I guess.
Apparently not. The plein air orgies or whatever. Wherever they're serving that.
Red robes, red cups, everything red.
Yeah, Sergio's like, I'll bring the lobster and grapes. Who's got the platter?
Yeah. And so maybe it comes back to that simplicity. And I never said about being, simple in my painting. But, I like that it's relevant to me and I'm more interested in painting it. The other thing too is I had, when I was learning how to paint, I worked through a book that was really significant to my development as an artist. And some of those involved exercises in still life that were very sort of basic arrangements. And I think that's sort of crept its way into my work as well.
That's cool.
So like the bread one, in fact, is one of the exercises out of that book. And so that's and the oranges too.
Right. Oh, that makes sense. It's like a practice on like spheres and things like that. And is that what
yeah, exactly.
Just like cones,
seeing
spheres.
the different colors in similar forms. In that case, everything's the color orange, but due to proximity and lighting effects and stuff, the colors are completely different. So,
in some of your paintings, you'll have like this just thick layer of paint you're just coming on and just glob. I know there's a technical term, but I'm not technically trained at all, obviously. So.
Right.
So I'm like globby paint stuff.
I like that. It's more syllables.
Yeah. That's why we created language to explain things longer. The longest way possible.
Yes.
Is there a reason why you go from one to the other?
You mean having thin and having thick?
Yeah.
I always like the with oil painting thickly.
Okay, so that's like usually you'll do that with oil paint.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Like the fish, and even my landscapes. It's just for me, that's the joy that I get in working with the medium.
Back to this one.
It gets pretty gunky, and I use like that one was painted with a palette knife.
Okay.
And so I actually scoop it on there, kind of like butter on a knife.
For sure.
And I like doing that because it kind of creates a more textured and dimensional effect that I'm interested in.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean,
and that comes back to that maturity thing. Like at first, I just thought the thicker and the crazier you are with the impasto technique, then like that's what it's all about. But you learn that you can get really nice effects without, any thick brush strokes on there. So.
Right. Yeah. My next question is going to be, I apologize because we're obligated to say bad jokes. And you just said that you use palette knives. I was wondering if you ever thought about using a palette gun. All right, that's one. That's one.
Palette gun, nice.
We're obligated to say like 3 bad jokes and 3 fart jokes every. It's a thing we have to do. And so
2 more to go.
2 more to go. If you could just hold your weight, Sergio, that'd be great. Damn, I had another actual question, but I was too busy thinking about the dumb joke.
Podcasting's hard, guys.
Damn it. It was something great. It was super deep. You guys just have to take my word on this. I mean, do you want to dive into this, the fires? We can go straight to that and just start breaking stuff down.
Sure.
It'll work out. If my mouse will decide to move. I think I need new batteries in my wireless mouse. Okay, boom.
Boom.
So you do these two, or you do these, not two, you do these like campfires as well.
Yeah.
It's like a reoccurring image or whatever you want to call it of in your work.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Sort of a little series.
Yeah, I just, I got into them. Like anything else, they interested me.
Okay, I think I zoomed in. And
So these are painted from life?
Nah, these are from photo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
one thing I like love about these, or I mean, you just like instantly are almost like put into the environment that you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you see these and you instantly will be pushed back into an experience of your own if you've been around campfires.
Yeah, exactly.
And the great thing about that is that it's almost like it's this cool thing you're doing where like you can instantly think about smells, people you're surrounded by, the time you had. It's like this great thing based off of like such a like just one image of one specific thing. And I thought that was like, when I saw you doing this, I was like, fuck, that's good. Like,
oh, thank you.
I'm really into that. I want to steal it, but
that's the highest compliment. Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, they're amazing. Like, I don't know, like if that was your intention, or if you were drawn to painting campfires for from your own experience, and you just were thinking about your own experience.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have experiences around campfires, and you know, the times that are associated with it. And you know, if you stare into a campfire long enough, it's just, you know, it's like looking at the ocean, and you just get transfixed, and it's just a almost spiritual sort of.
Yeah, I do it with experience. 2 seashells on my ears, so I can just feel like,
there you go. You get the full
effect.
Full effect.
Yeah, that's cool. So when you paint these, are you thinking about those moments at all?
You know, not at first. Not at first. I'm trying to I'm not trying to capture the feeling, because that's, for me, that's really hard to do.
Okay.
I'm really thinking about color, and I'm trying not to make it too cool, but I'm not trying to make it too warm, because if you make everything warm, then it loses that feeling of warm. So you have to inject some hints of coolness in there.
Right. Yeah, there's really definitely some like greens and stuff.
Yeah.
Especially in this one on the right. I just did something. No idea where I
clicked on a tag.
Oh.
Yeah, like in the highlights there, I didn't want them to be a bright orange, because then everything would be so warm. So I had to inject a little bit of green into it. Yeah, but like you look at the photograph. So for the one on the left, I remember looking at the photo, and it was basically the fire. And I took some, you know, creative license with the shape and some of the, you know, the other things.
How dare you?
But it was basically black. It was a black background with, you know, the fire in front. And
I see.
Anybody that's been around a campfire, you know that that's not the way it is, because it's glowing light. You know, it's glowing fire, and it has sort of a hazy, smoky atmosphere that surrounds it. And so I didn't want that stark hard edgeness around the flames. And so it's dark and it's warm, but it's nowhere near black. If you were to hold black next to it, it would be
for sure
something completely different.
Yeah, almost the darkest thing are these
the logs down there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thanks.
They're really great.
And it's, you know, again, it's an exercise in restraint, which I'm always trying to improve. And maybe that's kind of what I'm after, is getting that spontaneity and that looseness while also maintaining restraint. So it's the illusion of chaos and looseness, but it's actually, you know, deliberate and measured.
For sure.
I don't know.
Yeah. It reads that way. I mean, but yeah, we're forced to. We were talking earlier about how you can maybe pick apart someone's characteristics,
right,
based off of what they're painting, and I just want to know, like, is there some deep fire down in your soul and just trying to get out?
I think there is, yeah.
Or are you a lava monster? I'm just trying to figure this out. These are genuine questions. I would appreciate if you didn't laugh at them.
Can I lie down on this couch? I think
exactly.
The answers would come out a little bit better.
Yeah, I don't know if you're a Game of Thrones fan, but did your brother force your face into a fire when you were a kid, and now you protect the princess?
You're talking about the Hound.
Maybe that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I'm just trying to figure out who you are.
I do resonate with that character quite a bit. Probably because he's the least involved with incest, but yeah, I mean, maybe so. I don't know. I listen, to, and I read about artists, and they use a lot of symbolism in their work as an expression of how they feel. And I honestly don't dig too deep into that. I more just kind of naturally focus on things that I think I'm interested in making and looking cool. I know that sounds super shallow and uninteresting, but I think...
No, I don't think that's shallow, by the way. I know. I mean, I think to each their own, really. It's your version of telling a story is very different than someone using symbols and narrative, which is, I think, just as good of a way of explaining something.
Right.
I mean...
Sure. Symbolism and metaphors and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think, is it in the art spirit, he talks about how, like, you can find beauty anywhere, and you can find it down at the railway station just as easily as you can find it in the Alps and some of these beautiful places. And I think that's a measure of an artist, is being able to find that in mundane and unexpected ways. And that I was kind of interested in getting to that point.
For sure.
And I thought if I necessarily focus on overly beautiful things and trying to make them beautiful, then I would maybe miss a lot of the beauty that's in those not so obvious places.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
That, and, starting off, I just used what was around, whether that's a solo cup or a loaf of bread or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
So you read that book as well?
The Art Spirit?
Yeah.
I did, yeah.
So are you a part of that cult, or... I know Sergio
is that the
subscribe to that cult.
The Henry cult? Is that what we're talking about?
I guess so.
I mean, I read it. I don't think I've been baptized into that cult yet.
Chapter 1, verse 3.
Yeah, I mean, I try not to adhere too closely to any of the painting dogmas.
Right.
You didn't go clear after reading Art Spirit?
No, still not.
Yeah.
No thetans or whatever.
Yeah. Did they check your energy, and they were like, you are a cadmium red.
Ooh, we have an alizarin.
You're rare.
Exactly.
You're Series 4.
RH would not approve. No, none of that. I mean, I really got into Hawthorne's notes on painting, and I liked his philosophy where he, for me at least, what he was saying was painting is about putting one color note next to another color note. You do that enough times, then you have a painting. So you get the color notes right, and enough of them, then you get that semblance of life in your painting. And I really...
Is he using note like the same way you would use it in music?
It's a spot. So a spot of color, I think.
Okay.
So, a spot of, a light yellow next to a spot of medium value orange.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get enough of those in the right place, then it starts to work. And I like that idea.
Yeah.
It's almost, to me, I look at it kind of like an old world pixelation, where it's these things coming together.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that interplay of looking up at it, at a close distance, and it's interesting in an abstract way.
Mm-hmm.
And then you stand back and it starts to come together, and I like that phenomenon.
For sure.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense for your work.
Yeah. Have you ever seen Magic Eyes?
Magic Eyes, no.
They're magical.
Okay.
You could see a pirate ship.
Oh, you're talking about the posters?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Next level.
I have.
Next level.
You have to cross your eyes and then soften your look.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you always get that one friend who's like, I don't see it.
How can you see that? There's nothing there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, it must suck to be that one person. I know. He sounds like a person that also eats his snow cone or his drumsticks from the bottom up.
Yeah.
Real sicko.
It says a lot about you guys.
Yeah. No one wants to see his paintings. No one.
Yeah.
A lot of clowns.
You just make up whatever.
Yeah.
And there's a unicorn with Rambo on the back. What do you mean you can't see it? It's right there.
He's jumping. He's moving. Yeah.
Yeah, those things were pretty cool.
Yeah. That's cool. I know that does. I remember I was at the Legion of Honor and I walked by this painting because I was pretty close to it and it was pretty big. And I walked by and I was like, boring. And I got like 40 steps away and I was like, huh.
Is that the same thing?
I just thought like, why didn't I see that painting? And I went back to it and I got too close and I was like, oh, it sucks. And I went back and I was like, oh, it's amazing. Like, I don't understand. Make up your mind, painting. Be good or not good. Don't be in between.
Yeah.
Don't be a flip-flopper.
Yeah. I think one of my painting teachers, I'm probably butchering this, but he said a good painting should be interesting from 3 inches, from 3 feet, and from 30 feet. So on all those levels.
Yeah. And when you first started, I thought your art teacher said, I'm butchering this.
This is awful.
He's just like painting. He's like, I am butchering this.
Get the cleaver. Yeah, well, he did say that too.
But yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, do you ever I remember before I used to, like, I don't know. I mean, you paint so fast. Maybe this doesn't even apply to you. And you paint outdoors a lot. But when I was first starting to paint, I would always point my painting at a mirror. Okay. And then kind of like look at it, and it would also like lengthen. It would stretch out the distance between me and the painting by double.
Right.
And then and it would also like, I don't know, just seeing it in reverse sometimes would make me realize that there was something messed up about it.
Yeah, drawing issues and things.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, that definitely helps.
Now I do selfie versions of it with my phone.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
I just look at it on my phone. I'm like, oh, that's got to fix her up.
Yeah.
I got to put some darkness or lightness or something into it.
Yeah, all those things are helpful, definitely.
But do you guys do that?
I never got into the habit of doing the mirror thing, but I definitely do the selfie thing.
Yeah, I actually don't know. In fact, I know some people, they'll photograph it and then they'll just take the color away and look at it in grayscale.
Oh, really?
Just to look at the values.
Oh.
That's a really good idea, but I've never used that.
Who's that does that?
I don't know. Now you're making me think.
I was just trying to figure out who the smartest person is. Well, whoever that is, it's that person.
And
now
they're not in this room, so
R.I.P.
Yeah, I'm definitely not against that. I think all those things are really helpful. Anything that can give you an edge and improve your work.
Yeah, that's our art tip of the day.
Yeah. Whatever it takes, right?
We rarely have one, so look at your stuff in a mirror or through your phone.
Yeah.
Or even selfie, because selfie version flips it.
Right.
So you can like selfie and point it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's weird how that changes it. I also have like, I have like those weird like convex mirrors in my room.
Sure.
And those used to do something because they would pull it back even farther.
Oh, right. Yeah. I get what you're saying now.
I don't know where I'm going with any of
No, yeah. No, I get it.
But yeah. That's cool. So yeah. So
your values are always so solid to me. Do you do any sort of checking as you're painting? You just kind of eyeballing it as you go?
Yeah, it's mostly an approximation. And it's kind of my starting point. I usually start with either the lightest light or the darkest dark, and I don't go past that. So I establish that from the front end, and I just use that as my standard, and then I measure everything off of that in terms of value.
Right.
That makes sense.
So if I need to back off on something and then sometimes what I'll do is if I want it to look even lighter or even darker, then the accents I'll push it a little bit further at the end just to give it that last punch.
Sure.
because sometimes it's needed. So
that's cool. Yeah. I mean, I'm also not that in. Like I've known your work for a week now. Well, maybe not even that. I think Sergio told me like Monday or Tuesday, like, my buddy might be able to do the show. And I'm like, cool. I looked at your work and I was like, oh, hell yeah. So
I appreciate that. Thanks.
See, that's cool too. Like some of the choices you make in your artwork, I just like really enjoy. There's even one we were looking like, I think this is the moon, right?
Yeah.
And you do a glow around the moon, but it's very much like, I don't know, a square, diamond shaped.
Yeah.
I don't even know if the shape is intentional or whatever. It just putting that halo around it so like almost nonchalantly is like something when I like look at someone's artwork, if I see things like things like that or things I like either those decisions make me like the artwork more or hate the artwork.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why I do it is because I always respected and admired that artists could do bold things like that. Like you look at a lot of Sargent stuff or Zorn stuff and it's like, man, they really got away with so much.
Oh yeah, Sargent especially.
But it reads so well. And I always wanted to incorporate that in my stuff. It's like, I try not always to settle with the obvious way to do something. I try to incorporate that and see what I can get away with. It's like,
for sure.
Can I do this and still make it read or still have it make sense and still be interesting?
Like for instance, this painting I was looking at for like a decent amount of time when I was going through your work, and I was like, because I assume that these are clouds.
Yep, that's a great big.
And then I assumed this was rain, but I wasn't sure. But then there's like a wedge of sunlight, like peeking through past like a really dark mountain and a pretty dark cloud.
Right.
And then this like choice to like, I couldn't figure that out, and I really like that about that.
Yeah, and that's a perfect example of that. And that's kind of a graphic brushstroke that I wanted to put in there because otherwise it would just be a pretty... either an abrupt shift or a jolt from that yellow into that more neutral orange there. And I thought, I'll just kind of bleed this over and put a couple extra strokes into the yellow. And it stands out definitely, but I think it still reads to a degree.
Yeah.
And also, if you look to the left of that highlight of the sun, there's that yellow green. And before it wasn't there.
Right here? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
That was... on my palette, it looked pretty bold and almost like it wouldn't really work. And then I put it down and it ended up, kind of going nicely with that grouping of colors.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
That one I let slide.
Lucky green. Yeah, lucky this time. That's cool. I have this issue sometimes where I'll see, it's because like for me, my palette is like a middle tone palette, So sometimes I'm painting and then I'm working on a dark area or a very bright area. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, this color will go perfect there. And I like set it in. I'm like, well, that didn't work at all.
Oops.
Yeah. Great. Now I gotta like smudge that off without ruining what I've already done or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I also see one of the like things I love about what you're saying is that you don't take your artwork, like you don't hold your each painting super sacred or whatever, which to me it's like the very opposite. Like that's like the only
I think in fairness the ones I'm painting are much smaller and much less committal. You're spending days, weeks, however long, and that's a huge investment, and so you have to be attached to it, otherwise you couldn't persist in doing it, I don't think. And these ones, I mean, if I blow a few hours on it, it's not the end of the world.
Right. That makes sense.
And I think maybe that's another personality insight. But
I was just thinking the same thing. I mean,
we're learning a lot today.
I mean, and it might not even have anything to do, like, it's not like you're not committed to your art. Yeah. Right. It's just that you're not committed to each painting.
Right.
And for me, it's, it's just different. It's just, I'm going to spend much more time on each painting.
Mm-hmm.
And so I find that, as far as like finding time valuable, that to me is,
Yeah.
the one thing I'm willing to spend a lot of time
Right.
on. And I mean, it just is what it is. It's also like one of those things where it's tough for me to throw away a painting that I know sucks. I'm like, oh gosh, that just didn't work out. And I just like put it away somewhere. And then, years after when I look back and I'm like, oh, that's garbage, I just throw it away.
Okay.
And, it just takes a while.
Yeah, definitely.
But
I mean, I definitely chucked a lot of canvas when I was learning how to paint, and it was, a really frustrating experience. And I just wanted it far away from me and not even a memory. And so, I just wanted to get better at it and do so quickly because I wanted to move past. And my belief was that, the more mileage and the more experience and the more, work you do, then the faster that goes away.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of my mission. And
I think that's a pretty solid I don't even know if that's a belief. I think that's just fact.
yeah, I mean, everybody has enough crappy paintings in them. You just got to get them out of your system.
Yeah. Yeah. The only other thing I ever tell anyone is just try to practice good.
Yes.
Like don't try to like figure out how to fail and
right.
Those kind of things. Like don't get
otherwise
stuck.
You're not going to get better is the thing.
Yeah.
And if you keep making the same crappy painting 50 times, then you haven't learned anything. So
right. Yeah.
you have to try on each one, but they're still going to be horrible nonetheless.
Yeah. You should hate comfort. Is what
yeah,
I
exactly.
Like
that's
the
it.
second I start getting comfortable or bored, I'm like, oh, I gotta like push myself to be afraid about what I'm doing.
And that's not easy.
It's not.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
And so I think that, my temperament and sort of that, my approach in coming to painting has definitely affected the work that I'm doing now. Though I think I've gotten to a point where I could move past that. I think, my mindset is different than, even just a couple of years ago. It's from a barg drawing.
Yep. It's a face.
Yeah.
Face of a statue.
Yep. But yeah, temperament and personality has so much to do with it. And I think maturity and knowing what you can handle. And when you're first learning, when I was first learning, I couldn't handle the the attachment and then the rejection and the failure. So the
attachment, like as far as sales?
No, I mean as far as, me making a piece that I was pleased with and at the end, just realizing that it's a train wreck and having to move past it.
Right. Yeah. When I was younger, I was much more confident.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like now I'm like, I mean, not like just now, but like for when I was younger and a lot worse, I was like killing it.
Yeah.
And then there's a point where I think I just became more aware of like my peers' work and being like comparing, even though I don't do that now, I think that was kind of like a chain reaction of like, oh, like that's amazing. Like I need to step my game up kind of mentality. And then it just became more of like a self-critic of myself through that. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
I honestly have no idea, but yeah, and now I just, I'm perfectly fine with not being happy with my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I realized is that like, no one spots any of my,
the things that you see in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then you go from like talking to your artist friends who have skills who don't even notice things.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, well then the average bear is definitely not going to even have any clue of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But
we think they do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's almost like I don't even care if they do. It's like well, I see it. Like, I don't care what you don't see.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, I don't think we're capable of moving past that. I don't think that's going away.
And I think that's a good thing too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that whole like pushing yourself forward through that. Like if you're just happy with everything you do, then you're that person on American Idol who's horrible at singing.
Lacking self-awareness.
Yeah. And you're just like, I'm the best. And people are like,
yeah, and it's being able to overcome that resistance to want to, reject it.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it, is understanding your weaknesses and not succumbing to them, but finding ways to work around them, and
for sure,
and being smart about it.
Yeah, or just dive deep into the weakness.
Exactly.
And embrace that and be like, well, I'm going to be enjoying this terror for a while.
Yeah. I remember Chuck Close saying something like that. He said something about how he's a impatient person, so he finds ways to be more patient in the way he works. And he's a sloppy person, so he finds ways to be more organized and neat and orderly in his work. And I thought that's a nice attitude to have, instead of just, accepting your weaknesses and dealing with and living with it. Then, you can do that, but he's choosing to do what he wants to do, which is overcoming those.
For sure.
For the good of his work.
That's the only things he's overcome. That's what most people say. Bad joke number 2.
Youch.
Ouchies. Sorry, Chuck.
He just unsubscribed. Yeah.
I thought that was a good one. But yeah, that's God. I'm sorry. I gotta rewind.
Maybe clap again in the microphone.
Yeah. Send all hate to @Joshua the lawyer.
Not cool. Not cool. This is a group effort. So send your stuff to Main Loop, and then he'll at me. But it just is what it is. That's there. We've talked about it a little bit before about how I know we mentioned it with Jeremy Mann's techniques, but there is something where you see someone who paints similar to you, where that fearlessness you can kind of read in their work of just being able to kind of push things in a certain direction, and you get this comfort. You see a comfortable, that the artist is comfortable in that, from being fearless for so long
that it becomes
where you
ordinary for them.
Exactly.
Okay.
And you can kind of play around with that, this might mess up my paintings, where for me, that might freak me out and
for sure.
And kind of scare me from trying things out that I want to do or think might work, but I'm not sure, and I don't want to just wipe away hours of work from that. So,
well, I think that comes back to what you're saying about being comfortable, being uncomfortable, and finding things that are challenging you. And because I think ultimately that's where the interest lies, is solving those problems, and maybe not at first understanding what's going on, but then making sense of it. And that's incredibly, for me, in my experience, it's been a really rewarding time, is taking on challenges and then finding ways to make success out of them.
Yeah, totally agree. Do you show in the Bay Area a lot?
I'm not in any galleries currently.
Is that just a decision you've made?
Yeah, I have a full-time job, so I work, and painting, that's another reason I paint small, is just my time doesn't allow me to do a lot of bigger stuff necessarily.
Is your work creative at all?
I'm a high school art teacher.
Oh, that's cool.
So, no. Just kidding. No, it is. Yeah.
It's a lot of wrangling of children.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
That's cool. Yeah. Do you get is there a good talent pool where you're at?
There is, yeah. There's some good kids.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got when I went to high school, I had one teacher who was serious about art. That was an art teacher.
Yeah.
The others were not
just phoning it
at
in.
All. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Like an English teacher teaching art.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
They got their teaching credentials. They have no knowledge of art. So,
right.
So for sure, that would be awesome if, you're a very talented artist, so it's cool that they have that person to at least draw from.
Yeah, it's fun.
How does that work? Do you pretty much get to decide what they? I mean, because I know like English, there's like, you get to read these books. And
Yeah.
how does art work? I've never thought about that.
Well, there's state standards that we have to adhere to, and the school district has a curriculum for the art class.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, I teach. I mean, I've taught ceramics and sculpture and 2D art, and now I'm just teaching 2D art. And each of those courses have curriculum that goes with it. And so, Sergio and I were just talking about this in the car over. But so I have the curriculum, and as long as I'm teaching to the objectives, I can still remain pretty fluid as far as the projects that I have the kids work on. So there's a lot of flexibility in that.
That makes sense.
So it's not in English where you're reading To Kill a Mockingbird and
Right.
Unit 1, you're talking about chapters 1 through 3. It's not as strictly outlined like that.
Right. It's like still life stuff and then paint and then stuff
so
like
it's right now we're working on grid drawing, and before that we were doing values and how to shade properly. So it's foundational drawing stuff that they're learning for right now, and then we'll get into color theory and and on and on.
That's cool.
Yeah.
How do you grid draw when you're plein airing?
I don't do it when I'm doing plein air.
I'm totally just kidding. I didn't know if that was a real
So there is like sight size, I guess that.
Yeah. I never got into that. Did you?
Like
No,
where you
I
kind
never-
of have like that little thing? Is that what you're talking about?
You can use those. I've seen there are little tricks, little gadgets you can use that are actually it's like a window, and then it has wire set up in a grid.
Huh.
But for me, it's not really I'm not into that.
So you
Yeah.
should just put glasses on with grids. I think that'd work.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm patenting that, so don't you dare try stealing that. Listeners. It'll work, trust me.
I think he just took the lead for smartest person in the room again.
Dang it.
Look out, Google Glasses.
And I bet you look really cool.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, sight size is just when you set up the your whatever you're looking at, your subject to be basically the same size as your canvas. So you're basically painting it the same size as what you're looking at.
Right, and that's just so you can measure things out pretty well.
Right, yeah. They do it a lot in like classical atelier style training.
Those dirty dogs.
They're cheating.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah, when I have plein air, I usually try to paint one blade of grass, but in like a 3x10 foot like painting.
Yeah. Use a microscope for your
Yeah.
Google Glass.
Yeah.
Extreme plein air painting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I talked to a guy one time. I was doing a painting event out in Markleyville, which is up on the
Oh, wow. Yeah.
up in the Sierras. It's kind of on the border between Nevada and California. And he was an extreme plein air painter.
Really?
So he was doing like on location paintings at like metal concerts.
Okay.
And he's like this 50-something, middle-aged guy.
Oh, really?
He's got his French easel in the middle of a mosh pit or something.
Oh, my God.
I'm like, how do you even do that? That's crazy.
Does he drink a lot of Red Bull?
I must. Just
be
imagine
extreme.
how odd that would be.
That is crazy. Huh.
I just thought that's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. The blade of grass thing, that's like the equivalent to when people paint one super detailed eyeball.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
It
That's
gets
like
you-
painting one eyelash. Though. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
You got to put a
suppose.
dewdrop on the blade of grass.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's true. Huh.
Yeah.
That's cool, though. The mosh pit live painting.
Yeah. It was pretty wild.
What if he just was just like, well, like nothing?
Just black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's that one guy that I'm great at names, but when we were talking about the painters that did the boxers.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And you had the one guy and I had the other guy. The guy I was thinking of,
Yeah.
he always like surprised me with how he painted, because it always seemed like he was painting the boxers as they were fighting. Like,
Oh, yeah.
what's his name?
George Bellows.
That's the one.
Oh, did he do that?
I don't know, but they always felt that way.
Right. I wouldn't be surprised if he did some little sketches. Yeah. Or drew, painted from like pencil drawings or something that I did at the fights.
Yeah.
But I have no idea actually.
I know
What his
James
methods
Gurney
are.
does a lot of that stuff. I've seen him
That's
do.
true. Yeah.
He did NBA basketball games.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is pretty wild.
Uh huh.
But
That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty.
And there's that one artist that did the OJ trials.
Oh, right.
The courtroom artist.
The courtroom artist. Yeah.
Yes.
I've got nothing. I think that was joke number 3.
So you're at your limit.
I'm cut off.
Time for me to come in.
Does that mean it's good joke time?
That means we have 3 fart jokes. So Sergio, take it away.
Nice.
Nice. Here's another question I always had with high school art teachers.
Okay.
How do you grade? Because I assume that there's like a huge spectrum.
Yeah. Well, the kids
talent.
the kids that I like, they get all the A's.
Okay.
Kids that give me headaches, no. I use rubrics. They're very helpful. And so I outline, basically, I explain what it is I'm looking for with a given project.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell them at the front end, I'm looking for proportion.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for, placement and scale. I'm looking for, sense of form and light and shadow.
Mm-hmm.
And then shading technique, quality of your marks on your page, craftsmanship, how you care. You don't have you're not folding a Bristol paper in half and there's not, coffee stains on it.
Right.
Unless you wanted coffee stains.
Yeah.
That was the choice.
Exactly. Multimedia.
Yeah.
And then effort. And that's a big part of it too. So.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So do the kids that are like maybe not naturally talented, but like obsessed and at a higher level, do you critique them at a higher level?
I do, just because I think it's good for them.
Mm-hmm.
100% doesn't teach them anything, even though, compared to everyone, if you were to look at it as a scale, they would be up there,
Mm-hmm.
but they need to know where they're at.
Hmm.
So I do grade individually. It's not like a bell curve.
It seems like it would have to be that way in a way because, there's just people that can't draw and never put any effort towards it.
Yeah, absolutely. And effort is a huge part of it. And it's intangible, I realize. But
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, I just had my students work on I can't believe I'm talking about high school art.
Sorry making me talk about work.
I had them draw, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Picasso drawing of Igor Stravinsky. It's just a pen and ink drawing that he did. It's pretty popular in high school art teacher circles.
Okay.
The idea is you take that drawing and you turn it upside down and you look at it. And so it obscures. You're going to pull it up?
Sure, why not?
Okay.
It sounds familiar, actually. Is it like a tubby guy that's like...
He's in a suit.
Because I remember having
a homely fellow.
to do a Picasso painting drawing upside down.
Yeah, it was probably that one. Yeah. The way Picasso drew him, he was definitely chubby.
Is Igor?
Just Stravinsky would probably get you there. Yeah, right there.
Okay.
But the idea is they turn it upside down. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
To obscure
Mm-hmm.
the idea that it's a man sitting in a chair with glasses and a tie. Yeah, exactly. Because I want them to not look at it as hands or a nose, or because their idea of what a nose looks like is different from what a nose actually looks like.
Right.
And if they were to draw an eye, they would make an almond shape with a circle in the middle of it, and that's not always what eyes look like.
Right.
And so what I tell them is I'm challenging their thinking and the way they're looking at things. And sometimes in order to draw something well, you have to forget what you think you know about it when it comes to observational drawing. And
yeah, it's like the whites in eyes,
Yeah.
It's like
is it white?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's always like the thing if you're an artist, like there's no, like you never use, you use some white when mixing the color. But,
Right.
But it's never a white. The highlight is a white, but or maybe something close to it. But
yeah.
But yeah.
And so like with this, they really struggle with it because it's challenging their way of thinking. And that's what I'm trying to get them to do, is to look at it in a different way, to get something different than what they've done. And something that I really think is super beneficial. For me, that's one of the key moments in my development is that realization that sometimes you have to forget that what you're looking at is what you're looking at.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that sort of unconventional way of thinking about things.
Yeah. It's like, I'm pretty sure most artists squint their eyes a lot when they're painting.
Yeah.
Just to kind of blur things out.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what you're doing. You're almost like trying to take away like what the image is, and just look at values and
totally, yeah. In fact, I was just grading these, and I had, I don't know, 5 or 6 in one class. They thought they were smart, and I get this every year, but they just traced it. You know, they're like, "This is hard,"
right?
So they'll just trace it, and it's like, you think I can't tell? I mean, this is like a perfect copy. And then they'll try to fudge it, and so they'll do like the fuzzy lines around the lapel. I'm like, you guys, you're cute. Yeah.
To be young.
Yeah.
That's cool. Sorry to make you talk about your
That's
job.
Okay. That's all right. It's not that bad.
At least you don't work in a coal mine.
That's it.
Could be worse. All the coal mines in the Sierras, they're known for that.
They really are. The epidemic of black lung.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I always think of Zoolander.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah. Merman. Shout out to mermans out there. Just living their dream.
Can't turn left. Is that what it is?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the Magnum or whatever. Were you a Zoolander watcher, Sergio?
I've seen it once.
Okay, well, get out. I can never tell if people think I'm being very mean to Sergio during the podcast. Because I'm always just overly, making fun of you or whatever, jokey wise.
Yeah.
It's out of love. You come from a place of love.
Yeah.
I haven't had anybody complain yet.
Okay.
No hate mail or anything like that.
No, we did I did do a weird intervention thing with Sergio a couple episodes ago.
What was that?
I was like, it was just, I don't know. Was I drunk?
I was fine. What, were you drunk? No, I don't think you even drank anything that day, did you?
I drank.
Oh, okay.
But I was just telling Sergio he should stop painting his Painted Roses series.
Oh, okay.
I
may have heard that. Yeah.
But then I think David Chaffetz was like,
yeah. Yeah, he said something like, "Yeah, this is the only art podcast where one of the hosts will have an intervention in the middle of the episode with the other codes."
I don't know. I mean,
that's why we love waiting to drive.
Yeah.
The other thing is like, you surround yourself with artist friends, and there's benefits about that. Sometimes they're like harsh critiques, and sometimes it's like uplifting, like, oh, this is fucking awesome.
Right.
And you get the spectrum, but it's you get that benefit rather than being surrounded with people
that are just going to tell you it's good,
which
isn't constructive.
Exactly.
Right.
And you know that it's coming from a place of understanding because everybody's going through it, and like, I'm really hesitant to critique other artists' work just because I know that it's just a struggle, putting things down, and it's admirable when anybody posts anything
for sure
because they're putting it out there, and it's a vulnerable sort of thing. So.
Yeah. I don't think I went at you hard. I was just more like, you should. I don't know. It was almost how I read the artwork. Was like, I think you've done that to your. Like, you seem tired of it. It's almost like a friendly, like,
yeah.
I think you're tired of it. You should. Like,
well, I didn't fight you on any of the of the observations you made. I was like, yeah, you kind of have it spot on. So,
like, he's not wrong.
Yeah. So, and I think that's the benefit of having art friends.
Or maybe you knew that, and that's where it cuts the deepest, That's where he really feels it. He's like introspective, and it's like, he's right.
I also cut him deep with a palette knife.
He shot me with a pallet gun.
Art on art crime. It's a real thing.
Yeah. There you go.
But yeah, that's cool.
Serious psychological warfare.
How does it work in the plein air circles? I have this idea of plein air events. They literally are what I think people think of when they like, I'm like, so they're berets, obviously, and like they're just like they have like a baguette under your arm.
Okay.
And,
we're all riding around on bicycles in the countryside.
Long cigarettes and
I don't know. I'm not even sure I'm qualified to speak to that. I haven't done a lot of those events, but I think everybody kind of has their own way of doing it.
Yeah.
I don't know, Sergio. What do you think?
So your question is like, do people talk shit?
Like, how many baguettes are there?
Total number of baguettes.
No, I mean like
ballpark estimate.
Like, how's the community? I don't know. I'm not a part of it, so
right. It kind of depends on where and who the people are participating in the event. It's a little different for every event, really. There's some, like around here, there's a certain group of people who tend to do a lot of them that Jeremy and I know. So it depends, yeah. But like, for example, up in Portland, I was talking to the people I did the podcast with. They're really tight-knit and just like fun, nice people to each other.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's still definitely a fair amount of shit talking that happens in them too. Yeah. So it's not.
But I think it's only out of fun. I think everybody, all the ones I've done, it's been really inviting and encouraging.
Right.
And you get, the quiet people that keep to themselves, and you get people that are, just friendly and inviting and warm. I've never really met many jerks.
Yeah. They tend to not really do events where they have to be around a lot of people all the time.
So you've met them before, Sergio?
What, jerks?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh, what's their names? I'm just kidding. God, good thing I'm not in that circle. I feel like I would be that name just from this interview.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, say their name. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. It seems like I should probably go experience that. I've see, the interesting to me is like I've never gone that direction through, like I've never even some, like, I'm not immune to seeing like a beautiful sunset and being like, oh, that would be gorgeous as a painting or something like that, or whatever, and being like, oh, this is beautiful, like, and as an artist, I naturally try to break down how I would paint something, just in general. Like, if I see something, I'll just just try to figure out how I would tackle that problem.
Yeah.
But I've never been inclined to do that. I don't know why. It's just never been a part of me.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know that. I don't know. It's just so foreign. It's
it's about kind of what you pursue as your interests.
Yeah.
And definitely.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's also like we talked about it before. How like painting beauty, and it seems like it's usually like a figure or a landscape. Like those are very common like themes of beauty. And as artists, we pursue beauty, and like how you were saying, like you can find it in like in the smallest thing, or like there's like people can paint anything, and it'll, depending on how good they are or how much thought they put into it, they can make anything look beautiful, really.
Yeah, which is amazing.
But there is something that is captivating about humans and landscapes.
Yeah.
That is like, I've never looked at a red cup and been like, wow, Like, and that just, it's a thing that a landscape, when you're up in wherever and you look around, you're like, wow, this is gorgeous.
Yeah.
And it can take your breath away. And that, it makes sense why people would pursue painting that. And there is something great that I think landscape painters do where they, that a picture, like, there's been plenty of times where you'll go like to like Yosemite, and you're like, oh wow, like no picture ever captured this.
Yeah.
Right.
But there is something that landscapes do sometimes where they will like, it's, you know, even like exaggerating the colors allows you to almost feel what the like intensity of being in that place is like, rather than like a picture, which just, there's something missing.
Oh,
with
yeah.
Yeah.
You can't compare to being in Yosemite Valley or being in the Tetons or anywhere else and taking that all in.
Yeah.
Even just standing in a field and watching a beautiful sunset, like you can't paint that.
For sure.
I think it's just the pursuit.
Right.
You know,
and I think paintings even get closer than, like, they just get closer than pictures do.
Photographs, you mean?
Or photographs.
Yeah.
So
I think so too.
And I think it is because humans, we get to like exaggerate things or like, you know, communicate the awe of what we're looking at.
Right, exactly.
In a better way than a camera can do, because, you know, a camera is very limited to what it's allowed to do.
Yeah, it's a machine. It's an object that's just registering things.
Exactly. And there's really like a couple things you can alter in a picture. So where, you know, as an artist, you get to lay down each piece of what you're looking at and put some decision to what you're looking at.
Yeah, and I think that comes across, and I think people can connect with that, and they can connect with the intention of the artist, even if it's wrong. You know, even if there is a note, a color note in there that isn't correct, I think you can feel the humanity in it, as foo-foo as that sounds. But
I think so. It's even like your fire stuff, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Like how I was saying, like that instantly, and I'm looking at a picture of a painting, so I don't know if it's even better looking at I'm assuming it's better looking at the original.
I hope so.
But I don't know if I would get the same feeling looking at a photograph of a
campfire.
I mean, I think I could get that watching a small video of a campfire and hearing like the fire popping and maybe like people talking lightly in the background or something like.
Right. Yeah.
I might get that feeling through that, but you know, as far as like a single image conveying that, I think your paintings compared to like a picture of a campfire is much more.
I'm really glad to hear that. So thank you for saying that.
Absolutely.
Because I think that's the ultimate compliment is that you can put yourself in that place and you can, you know, experience that
for sure,
capture those feelings.
Yeah. I think for me, especially right now, I'm trying to figure out how to like bring forth nostalgia and like through like trickery, you know, like, and that's why like seeing your campfires was so like instantly like, damn, that's good. Like just because of that, it's like you instantly get nostalgia looking at these things.
Yeah. Right.
Where, you know, that's why I was jealous and wanted to steal it.
That's cool.
But it's that. It's that you accomplished it in such a simple way that is so like impressive. And
that's really cool to hear, because I don't, you know, when I sat down to do it, I wasn't setting out to, you know, how do I paint the emotion of sitting next to a campfire?
Sure.
Just because I think that's daunting. It's like, how do you capture a mood with this limited means of expression?
Right.
It was more about, you know, what can I do to make this, I don't know, look
authentic.
and then feel. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Being true to the color, and then it kind of takes care of itself in the end.
I think that's a good move in general, though. It's like, you know, like
sorry to
go
cut
ahead.
off.
Okay.
I just think if you're proficient enough in your means of expression, whether that's a saxophone or a paintbrush or a camera, then over time that just naturally comes out, kind of like what we're talking about with style. I think that expression can't help but come out. And you know, you look at you look at what am I trying to say here? I lost my train of thought.
Sorry, I think my wife just slammed the door.
That's okay.
Threw it off. I was.
Oh, okay. I know what I was going to say. I'm sorry. Keith Haring You look at some of his early street art, and he was just
Keith Haring,
back from the 80s. He does
the stick figure guys.
Like he painted super fast. Like when he was doing his graffiti and stuff, he was doing the same things. I remember seeing a video of him, and it was just like lightning fast.
Right.
And you just know, even though they're simplified, super basic sorts of little characters, you just know he's got the experience of thousands and tens and thousands of those things and similar things like that.
For sure.
And so Keith Haring had such a recognizable and obvious style. Yeah. And it just flowed out of him like it was second nature. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I was younger, I used to doodle on private property a lot. And, you put in your time usually in your sketchbooks and stuff like that. And, and you plot out the way you go about writing something or doing whatever. And you do that over and over and over and over and over again. And you work out every little like minute detail of everything about it to where it becomes second nature, because when you're out doing things, you want to be as fast as possible. So,
yeah.
So that, for sure, he would probably just sit at home and just put in hours and hours and hours.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And I really respect that. I like looking at it. I mean, there's something about art that has this mystique and this nice element of magic and wizardry almost, which is what I used to think. I used to think that like the good guys at my high school that could draw like nothing. I was like, oh, they were born just endowed with a gift from the gods to draw. And then I learned, what sets them apart is they just knew how to draw things correctly. And like they make it look magical and mystical, but it's capable of you're capable of learning that and doing that. And sometimes it's through mileage, and sometimes it requires less work for other people. But I just like that idea of approaching art as a craft that you can polish and perfect over time.
And now that like the magic's gone, what I do is I paint a lot of wizards just to keep the magic alive.
Yeah. So. And I mean, that's the thing. I don't mean to say that it's just a gruel and a grind, because that's not what art is.
Right.
Art communicates, and it's
I think so.
You have to have that mystical side in that.
Yeah.
So
it's just like music, or whatever. It's like, I mean, there is something magical for me that's not a musically inclined person.
Right.
Music is this magical thing to me, and I know that. If I put in hours and hours and hours of work, I could be somewhat musically inclined. Right. I was also blessed with banana fingers, so I don't think piano is going to be my thing, or guitar, so it just is what it is. But
you can play the triangle.
Yeah. I also wield a tiny brush pretty well, so maybe I'm just making excuses.
Yeah. I think I saw one of your posts about this isn't a tiny painting.
Yeah, it was a joke, and everyone made fun of my hands.
That was pretty great.
My favorite one was the guy who said you were Andre the Giant painting a stamp.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to talk about was I mentioned it in my Instagram, but one thing I've been doing recently was like I randomly titled a sketch in my sketchbook, and it was just so I didn't forget, like if I ever paint this, maybe I'll title it that, but it was just to remember kind of the overall idea of why I did this doodle. And when I did that, I found that like it was interesting how that added some sort of value to the drawing. Not necessarily saying like a title adds value, but when going through my sketchbook, I would see this title and think about the painting and remember like certain things about it, and think about the two figures in the painting more. And it was just like, and that's what I mean by value, is just that, just more of me investing more thought into that piece.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting. So I've been kind of randomly, if there's a drawing that I have some sort of like idea I'm trying to work out, I'll maybe add like 2 words just and call it a title, because I put it in parentheses so it's official. And and kind of seeing what that does, and just kind of as like a little experiment to see, was it a one-off thing? Or if I do it over and over and over again, does it still hold that value? Or, or whatnot. So I put it out there for the interweb, and I just thought it was interesting how much a title can do something. I don't know if titling a painting.
Sometimes it's something similar, but I'm never as deliberate as to write it down in the moment when I think of something. I try to keep my titles kind of vague, and I don't give them a whole lot of thought.
Right.
But when I do think of something, an emotion or something that goes with it, then I'll try to fold that into the title somehow. But I think your work lends itself better to titling in that respect.
Yeah, I'm also like obsessed with narrative.
Yeah, well, you wrote poetry, right?
Yeah.
And so...
Well, horrible poetry.
So in that case, words have, really powerful meanings, because each word has to carry a certain weight and basically tell a story. So
yeah.
And I think you're basically writing a poem for each piece in the title that you give it.
Yeah. And even in the painting, I'm kind of tackling it the same way as if it was a poem. Like I'm trying to kind of have this certain mood and meaning and all this behind it, but also like not writing a novel in that it's a clear-cut thing. It's almost like a loose narrative and a couple, like it's like a bag of ideas kind of jumbled up into and thrown on a wood panel.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know what your titles are. Are they pretty...
Depending on how much thought I want to put into them. I kept it simple with the painted roses stuff. Those are just all named after varieties of roses. But
like one's like red rose, and then one's like white rose.
Exactly.
I thought rose was a variety.
Rose. Yeah. But
big rose, small rose.
No, I've definitely taken titles from things like song lyrics, poem lines, stuff like that.
And does that come from like things you're obsessed with at the time? Like, or is it a song you're listening to while painting?
No, sometimes I'll just like collect phrases or something like that. Like if I hear something that sounds interesting or sounds like it might be a neat title, I'm like, oh, okay. Let me get in my phone and put in my little notes.
Like Shake Your Money Maker.
Yeah, exactly.
Something completely counter to your subject.
Yeah, or sometimes things as I'm painting them, a title will just jump out at me as I'm doing it.
Do you dodge it?
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry. That's joke number 4.
He's a machine, guys.
That was like a dad joke.
Yeah. Pretty good. Exactly what that was. Shout out to all the dads out there.
Happy Father's Day.
I always thought it'd be cool as a, plein air painter, and somebody's probably already done this, but I always thought it'd be cool to put the, like the longitude, latitude coordinates.
Oh, that's not a bad idea.
And then the time of day. So you're being almost, geographic with it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you probably have to do the date too.
Yeah.
Because of the sun, what time the sun sets.
Right.
Or whatever.
Yeah. So you have the season, and then you have the location and the time.
That's cool.
So it'd just be a bunch of numbers.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
not
interesting.
bad. Yeah.
I probably shouldn't have told the world about that.
You'll see what I do in the next plein air event.
Yeah.
Darn you, Maine Luke.
Have you seen Sergio's genius idea? So you can experience his painting in real time.
That's it. Yeah.
We're on to you,
You
Sergio.
can have that one.
No, I find titling paintings at plein air events the hardest thing to title it, because usually the default is to like, painting it Sonoma Sunset or something like that. It takes a little bit more creativity to come up with something that both fits the painting and isn't too isn't too cliche.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then to do that for like 6 or 7 paintings or however many you end up.
Just go
adding
back to your
the
song
right.
lyrics.
Yeah, exactly.
I know.
You do like Sweeter the Juice,
Yeah.
Mom Spaghetti.
Whoomp, there it is.
Yep. Jump, jump.
Using napkins, blampkins, and
What is that again?
from the Crystalia thing.
But yeah.
Well, plus too, I mean, you don't want to go too far into the other extreme where it becomes like super schmaltzy and
Or it can get too like
Yeah, like that one, the whispering. What would you have that one painting?
the wandering eye of a whispering soul.
Yeah, that one.
a little on the sentimental side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You definitely don't want to, and you also like, even if you're trying to have a narrative, you don't want to be like, this was this. You know, like you don't want to spell it out for people.
Yeah.
Right.
On the nose.
Yeah.
You want to leave them guessing a little bit.
Yeah.
Think about what it means.
Yeah. You want them to put some effort towards it. It's like knowing the end of The Sixth Sense or something. You know?
Yeah. Well, it's a nice little treat, you know. It's not the painting itself, but it's nice to know that there's some thought put into the name of it and how the artist thought it should be titled. So
Yeah. I usually will look at a painting for a while before I peek down at the title, just by habit of like not trying to, I'll try to figure out what they might be trying to say or whatever, or just experience it and then look down and see if maybe there's a clue towards what they're trying to say and if I'm anywhere near that or whatever. I mean, I'm also not like, I don't really care if I look at a title, I'm like, well, I was dead wrong about that.
yeah.
For you guys, has a title ever hurt your judgment of the painting or helped it?
For me, no. Because I look at the painting on its own merits.
Yeah, it's just like it's exactly that.
Oh, okay.
And if I look down, I've only gotten like a positive from it. If it's something where it's like too much or whatever, then like I don't care about the title.
Oh, okay. So it's like either neutral, it can only help.
Yeah. In my opinion.
Nice.
It was funny because so when I was talking about this title thing, I kind of got into like this conversation with this guy who was like, Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo, they never titled their paintings and they were perfectly fine. I was like, I don't know if that's true. Like, I'm not an art historian, but like the Mona Lisa is a thing that I know the name of. Like, even if there are for sure names of paintings that I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Last Supper.
Yeah, exactly. David, that's a thing.
It's like, what are you talking about?
And then he talked about what's his name? The guy that he put like the shark in like the formaldehyde.
Damien
Hirst,
yeah.
and then what the title of that piece is called. I forget what it's called. It's something ridiculous.
Is it?
I don't remember.
You can look it up. It's but it like literally the title is the one redeeming thing to like.
Oh really? Huh.
It's like the one insight where I'm like, okay,
that has nothing to do with a great white shark in a tank of formaldehyde.
Well, it kind of gives you like an idea of what he's trying to
Physical impossibility of death
in the mind
Of someone living. Oh, okay.
and then you're like, okay, like
It sounds kind of pretentious.
yeah, but even then I was like, okay, well that's the only thing that kind of seems to add value to this like gimmick, like to me it's like okay, like he's trying to say like this living thing is dead, and I don't know, it's like the one thing where you're like, if you saw this shark 100 years, like if like we fast forward in time and people discover this shark in formaldehyde, which will probably not exist then, but they would have no idea what the fuck they were looking at. They would be like, right. I don't know what this is. Like, and they just might think it's like some decorative thing for people of the past or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But would that change with the title of Shark in Tank?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't know. Shark Tank.
But
Yeah.
but I because what I think he's talking about is like like consciousness can't die is my guess by the title. That even though the shark is dead, that it was a conscious thing, and that's like when I hear the title, that's what I think he's trying to say. And then he goes like, okay, well maybe he put some thought into that. Like I still don't like it. Like I'm not a fan of his work in general.
Yeah.
But the title's like the one redeeming thing to it is like maybe he's got some genius behind it, and
Maybe.
I just don't know. But
Yeah.
either way, the only way I'm going to get that is through, like the only way I might get a glimpse of that is through the title. I don't get that from looking at his work.
So you find more of the
Right.
meaning in the titling of it than the work itself.
For that specific piece.
Right.
But the guy was having a conversation with, he brought this up, and I'm like, that's like the worst example. If you brought like someone that was like really great at painting that didn't title their work at all, I would much more prefer that argument.
Yeah. It stands on its own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's timeless, and no matter what,
Yeah.
if it's 1,000 years from now or
Right.
1,000 years ago, you're going to look at it and be like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I like to think so. I think there's some universal laws of what appeals to us.
I think so. In our monkey brains.
But I mean, I think there's definitely a place for Damien Hirst. I think
Yeah.
people respond to that in a certain way, and I think that's what art's all about, is just finding what you connect with.
Yeah.
And
And
I was talking about admiring artists that can get away with things and making it work in their body of work. And I mentioned Sargent and Zorn, and a lot of the, like, while it's not really my cup of tea, a lot of the modern artists and postmodernists and such, like, I admire the stuff that they do and can get away with. And I mean, I would never do anything like that, like the stuff that they're doing, but they're out there doing it, and that's commendable.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. There's, I don't know. Whatever. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
Let's hear it.
I was just gonna say, like, I don't know. There was like a part of this like community of artists that it's very much like the stock market or something. It's like it's pretend value based off of pretend value based off. It's like a
Right.
It's like this interesting game they play. Which I don't hate that.
It's artificial, is what you're.
Yeah, but it builds its value to their work that I don't know if it's justified or not.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like this credit they get for being worth more based off of this video game they play that they're really good at. And I'm like, I don't know.
So because they're in this tier
Right.
of notable artists, and you have these super rich people buying them.
Right.
That's what determines the value of it.
Yeah, and just playing the like inflate this balloon game, and I respect the business aspect of that, but that doesn't mean I have to add extra value to what I consider, like, I don't have to personally add value to what their artwork is.
Yeah, exactly.
So like for me, I go like, oh, like it's cool, I don't mind it. But I don't think it's anything like particularly amazing. Like if I go, for instance, if I go to, I don't know, somewhere in Nevada where it's a touristy area, I'm going to see a scorpion in resin, right? I don't see the big difference between that and that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't sit there and look at that scorpion and go, wow. Holy moly, that's amazing.
The artist was so inspired.
Yeah, $1 billion or $1 trillion. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's I don't know.
No, I think you're right. And like for me, I think art should elevate to some extent.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know, like you're saying, if it's something you can find in a Winnemucca gas station gift shop.
Yeah.
Nice pool, Winnemucca.
I think there is like something, like drawing back from like music. There seems to be like something you tap into as far as like the human being.
Yeah.
And playing certain chords that pull something out of you.
Right.
And I think painting is also a tool you can use to do that. And I think there is something great about, music. If you think about it, there is something modern about it, but if you trace it back, there's always something ancient about it. And I think painting is also that. And there's something timeless but like current that usually happens. There's the painter of the time painting, but it seems like, at least for me, the artwork that I think is great usually lasts longer than my time.
Yeah.
Even if they're not famous. I don't think fame is necessarily what I'm talking about. It's more like if I see a painter that I never knew of from the 1800s or something, and I'm like, wow, who is this and when did they live? I'll still be in, it's like, it's just timeless. Even if I've never heard of the person.
Yeah. And I like that idea of, artists painting in their time.
Right.
And like for me, when I was painting still life, when I was learning how to paint, we were painting like wine bottles and, candlesticks and, just this outdated stuff. And the point was to use it as shapes and textures and such. But like, for me, that's not relevant in the time that I'm living in because, I don't have wine bottles and candlesticks and oil lamps and things like that to paint.
For sure.
I'll paint a solo cup or I'll paint, these things that I find at, Chuck Taylor tennis shoe or whatever.
Right. I love Chuck Taylor tennis shoes.
Yeah,
I want to have all my models wear them all the time. They're such a great,
yeah, they're cool. They're graphic.
They're so it goes back to the nostalgia thing too that I'm obsessed with and the iconicness of them without having to be in your face. I'm not painting Marilyn Monroe.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm painting some shoes on
You're calling back to an era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To childhood. I'm not even necessarily talking about a time I didn't live. It's more like I want you to think back, on your own perspective, not like of a time better. I'm not trying to make America great again. We've already got that covered.
Maybe you are.
But yeah, I don't know if you want to do the
we'll do a little lightning round of it.
Yeah.
Get to think on my feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Who was the 15th president? I'm just kidding.
See, that was before Lincoln, right?
We'll bring up Jeopardy back again.
Who's the smartest person now?
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So lately we've been asking if for our guests, if you have sort of a top 5 artists that you look to either as inspiration or was in your formative years of learning who you looked up to, or even if you have people today who you're looking at oh man, they're badass.
Yeah, definitely. And that's probably what brought me into art is admiring other artists and their work. And I think a lot of people can say that. It's because you see so much great stuff and you just want to be a part of it and you want to make some of it and you want to make stuff as cool as what they're making.
Oh, definitely. Right. Yeah.
And so I really, on Instagram, there's so many people that I follow that are just unbelievable.
For sure.
Same here.
Do that. It's just so, the guys that come to mind right now, if I were to think about my Instagram, Benjamin Bjorklund.
Oh, for
I don't
sure.
know if you know him.
I really
like
his work.
Yeah, he's amazing. How dare you?
Steal that from his brain.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Is it Nicholas Uribe?
Oh, yeah.
He lives down in South America.
Yeah.
He's really good. Dead? Sargent. It's hard to get better than Sargent.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people.
He's almost everyone's top 5.
He really is. And I hate to mimic everyone, but
he was
there's a reason he's the best. That's because he is. Zorn is up there too.
Yeah. You mentioned, well, I don't want to take it from you, but.
No, go ahead.
You mentioned Sergei Bongard as a big influence for you.
Definitely. Early on. And today too, I definitely consider him an inspiring role model, you could say. I liked with him because he really got that whole broken color fragmentation thing that I was really into.
Okay.
And he just understood color on such a level that he would put things completely unrelated next to each other. But then when you look at them together, they equal something just magical.
Right.
And that phenomenon was just really, really inspiring to me when I was learning how to do it. And I thought that was something unique to painting that I wanted to emulate.
Yeah, some say he was an actual wizard. That's probably
He dealt in black magic.
dark arts.
Yeah. Some other ones, Sergio Lopez. Sergio Lopez is definitely up there.
I've heard of him.
What a liar.
R.I.P.
Wait, isn't Sergey and Sergio the same?
Pretty much. It comes from
origin?
the Latin surge. Yeah.
Surge? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, there you go.
Surge.
I've always liked, I'll tell you, one of the reasons I paint these smaller studies is Hawthornes Barbarian again.
Okay.
I was in Taos and we were at a gallery and he had just these small little studies that he did in Europe, of France or whatever. I guess he goes over there every summer or something.
Okay.
And I couldn't help but stare at them. And they were just so amazing. They were so small and so simple.
Right.
And he nailed the composition and the colors were just amazing. So he was definitely one that kind of informed my artistic direction.
Nice.
But there's so many folks,
For sure.
Yeah. There's at least 15 artists in the world, so it's tough.
Yeah, it really is.
I follow all of them on Instagram.
The
rest is just food porn.
That's pretty exciting too.
And the last question.
Oh, about David Cho money. So I don't know if you know David Cho's story, how he basically they gave him Facebook stock and it ended up make him $200 million.
Yeah.
So it just gave him the freedom to do and paint whatever the hell he wanted. So basically the question is, if you had $200 million to do with your art, what would you do with it?
As in what I would pursue artistically?
Yeah, like for example, like if you were to start a
or like would I paint on a yacht?
Like, is there anything you ever wanted to do art wise, but just were limited by maybe time and money or whatever?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I always liked the idea of great public art, like the Sargents in Boston in the library there. I just like the idea of great art in public places like that. So really killer murals, maybe done in a more traditional style. I think that might be kind of cool. Just do really epic art in really public places.
That's a cool answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look at the sculptures and the timeless works in Rome. And
for sure.
The amount of people that are just drawn there just to see that stuff.
Yeah.
And you don't find that in, strip mall.
Yeah.
Just, there's a lack of that.
You might be going to the wrong strip malls.
Bound chickie wow wow. You did say that was the highest form of beauty. Right? But no, I mean, Europe, you go over to Europe and there's so much artwork in the public and it's great. And I'd probably do something like that. Really just stellar sculptures and public art.
Nice.
Like that.
That's a good move.
So like dogs made out of spare parts on trailers.
Wait a second.
Is this a thing?
This is a Santa Rosa reference.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's an inside joke.
Yeah. You'll have to see it.
Are you talking about that sculptor guy that does all the metal work?
Probably.
Oh, he's the guy in town?
I don't know. I always see this guy who's doing like metal sculpting work in like Sebastopol and some in Santa Rosa.
Yeah, probably.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's cool. That's
awesome.
That's a good move.
So would you both create them and finance them, or?
Yeah.
Nice.
All right. Last question. Invisibility or power of flight?
Yeah, there's pros and cons, I guess.
Yeah.
Could I fly invisibly? Like stealth technology?
Well, see, I've had this argument with my wife, and I'm like, I would just hop on planes, invisible.
Invisibly,
like,
yeah.
And then just find an empty seat and sit in it. They don't check your ticket after you're on the plane.
Yeah, I think you have a strong argument. Just sit on someone's lap.
Yeah, there's always one empty seat. Yeah,
that's true. Just go back and eat all the peanuts.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay, you won me over. I'm going to have to say invisibility.
Yes.
Because you can still fly.
Welcome to the dark side.
Yeah.
You are smart.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a good question, though. This has been very insightful.
Oh, yeah. I think this has been the podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
If people want to find you, they can find you at Jeremy with an E like a weirdo. Or Duncan.
All one
And
word.
we'll shout you out on our thingies so people can find us find you through us. So that was tough. But yeah, thank you so much for doing this.
Cool,
Yeah,
man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Trip out.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's been good.
And yeah, I don't know if there's anything else.
Rate, subscribe, review.
Oh yeah, yeah.
We actually got a good review recently. That was awesome.
If you guys could write a review and rate us, that's pretty much all we ask for, and it's very helpful to us. So we really appreciate it when you do that.
We're not even selling mattresses on this podcast.
Yeah. And if you're still listening, kids go back to school.